Good afternoon. My name is Chris Butler, and I am the Deputy Director for the Houston Permitting Center. I want to give you a couple of highlights on the progress we've made at the Houston Permitting Center. Next slide. So at Houston Public Works, we start all of our presentations with our purpose. And the purpose of Houston Public Works is together we create a strong foundation for Houston to thrive. We hope to achieve this through our 5 to Thrive values, which are integrity, teamwork, ownership, communication, and respect. Next slide. So who are we? The Houston Permitting Center is home to 6 different departments. And it's not the entire department, there's individuals within these departments. But those 6 different departments are the Houston Fire Department, Houston Police Department, Administration and Regulatory Affairs, commonly known as ARA, Houston Health Department, Planning and Development, and Houston Public Works. Next slide. Although some of these individuals of these other departments report to the Houston Permitting Center, their direct reporting chain for those individuals who are here to review fire plans still report to Chief Pena. Our Houston Police Department employees still report to Chief Finner. Administration and Regulatory Affairs is Director Tina Paez. Houston Health Department is Director Stephen Williams. And for Planning and Development, that is Director Margaret Wallace Brown. But the individuals that are on the left-hand slide under Houston Public Works, Building Code Enforcement, Office of City Engineer, Business Support Services, and Infrastructure and Development Services all report to Houston Public Works Director Carol Haddock. Thanks. Next slide. So what do we do at the HPC? Just very simply, we review all construction plans, we issue permits, we regulate the operation of certain types of businesses, we issue special permits, licenses, anything that is vertical where somebody could inhabit the space, most of your horizontal where individuals will drive on or walk on. If there's any infrastructure, we're going to review the plans for that. If there's any buildings somebody's going to go into, we're going to review the plans for those. And we're going to make sure that the construction is built per the approved plans and that there are no life safety issues involved. Next slide. So the Houston Permitting Center basically consists of 3 service lines for the HPW, or the Houston Public Works section of the Houston Permitting Center. And those are the Building Code Enforcement, Office of City Engineer, and the Building Business Support Services. On our BCE side, that's where your plans, your permits, your inspections, and your code development sections reside. Office of the City Engineer, your traffic, utilities, engineering standards, your FMO or floodplain management office, construction services, and your storm. And then last but not least, we have our business support services. And that's where we have our customer triage and information. You have our open records and archiving, workplace experience and engagement. Next slide. So breaking down each individual service line of the HPC, the building code enforcement is primarily the main group that a lot of individuals interact with. And so that's the permit sections, applications, processing, address verification, our code development. That is the group that will review the codes that we're going to adopt by ordinance for the city of Houston. Plan review is one of our busiest sections on the 3rd floor here at the permitting center. That's for all commercial and residential construction and in one stop. And then inspections on our 4th floor, that's all your MEPs, your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural, and elevator inspections are all housed on the 4th floor of the Houston Permitting Center. Next slide. Office of the City Engineer, though that office is going to review your traffic, utilities, your engineering standards, your FMO, floodplain management office, construction services, and your storm. The current city engineer is Mr. Suhail Kanwar, and he is responsible for the managing engineers that oversee each one of these individual sections. And we always encourage individuals, if you're having difficulty getting in touch with a particular person, to work through that person's chain of command and go from the engineer to the supervising engineer to the managing engineer and all the way up until we can get the issue resolved. Next slide. So here's just some really quick numbers for fiscal year 2021. We reviewed 55,000 plans. We performed over 495,000 inspections, and we sold over 368,000 permits. And for fiscal year 21, that the numbers are a little bit lower due to the pandemic. We usually sell about 400,000 plus permits per year. But as you can see, because of the pandemic, our numbers are slightly down, but hopefully we'll start to see those numbers gain here very shortly. Out of that 730 employees that you see at the Houston Permitting Center, about 600 of them are directly the Houston Public Works Group. Then the other ones are some of those individuals I mentioned earlier. Those are fire, police, ARA, health, and the planning department employees. Next slide. So once again, the biggest section we have here in this, the whole third floor, is that dedicated primarily to plan review. Next slide. So for those of you who are not aware of the current structure of plan review, Ms. Nancy Brewer is a deputy assistant director, and she is responsible for all activities on the third floor. Now she has Mr. Jeffrey Connor is her division manager, and he oversees the individuals that you see underneath him. So Eric DeSalle is an admin manager over the structural plan review. Mr. J.A. Ortiz, admin manager over your submitted houses and one-stop plan review. Mr. Don Smith, admin manager over your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing review. Ms. Veronica Cirillo is the admin manager over your plan review processing. So once one of these first three individuals approves and processes up the plan, then Ms. Cirillo's team will process your sales order so you can actually purchase the permit. And then Mr. George Poley is over our fire protection and life safety. Next slide. So similar to BCE on the plan review side, the Office of City Engineer Plan Review Management has Mr. Suhail Kanwar, who is the city engineer, and then he has managing engineers under him that oversee the day-to-day activities. Ms. Venkata Venturi is the acting managing engineer over our traffic section. Gilbert Portillo is managing engineer of our utility section. Ms. Mary Bott over our engineering standards. Ms. Choice Morrow over floodplain management office. Mr. Lawrence Childress is our chief inspector over construction services. And Ms. Ivy Wang is the acting managing engineer over our storm section. Next slide. So earlier this year, City Council approved staff augmentation contracts to help the Houston Permitting Center meet or even exceed our current SLAs. Due to a numerous amount of issues, we currently have about 81 vacancies in the Houston Permitting Center, and we have over 4,000 plans. So we don't have enough individuals here to handle the current workload. So City Council approved staff augmentation contracts, one to Asani Consultants, and they have 6 structural plan analysts assisting with commercial plan review, and that contract actually started in April. Bureau of Veritas are going to do 30 expedited plan reviews per day, and you basically, it's kind of like our old CPO program. You call in before noon on Thursday, and they're going to review your plans and get them back to you before the end of the next business day, that Friday. The first 3 weeks, only submitted projects are allowed, and that's going to help to get Bureau Veritas get their feet on the ground so they understand how to operate within the city of Houston. Earlier this month, we would switch to the deferred submittals, and then hopefully by the end of July, we can also include storm reviews to the Bureau of Veritas contract. Next slide. In October of last year, we took our minor residential repair permits from the backlog of all of our plans and allowed individuals to simply go online and point and click, what are you going to repair? And we could issue a permit on that and not be caught up in the 4,000 plus plans we have in the system. Doing that, we saw a net of 500 permits that have been purchased since that implementation. So that's 500 quick turnaround permits versus being bogged down in the system and having to go through a full residential or commercial plan review. Next slide. Some of the other improvements we've done in the building code enforcement group, we've been reinstated our flex schedule options. So for those individuals who choose to work 4 days a week, 10 hours a day, they can use that 5th day of the week to actually have city paid overtime to review additional plans just to help with the backlog. We have an automation of our rejected plans on project docs. Before that automation was inputted, you have to actually have a human to go in and process out rejected plans. That was very time consuming and it just wasn't very efficient. So now it's an automated rejection of the plans. Our building code enforcement group has reduced review times from 28 days back in last year, September, to about 17 days. And if memory serves me correct, when we actually looked at the numbers earlier this morning, we were down to 15 days for structural and 12 days for plumbing. So a combination of individuals working hard, working overtime, and the staff augmentation contracts, the numbers are slowly going down. And we also want to reduce the reviews for deferred submittals and revisions to 10 to 12 days. Currently, right now, 68% of all of our building code enforcement plans are approved within the first 2 cycles. We have a moonshot goal here at the Houston Permitting Center to say approved in 2, which means we want 100% of all plans approved in 2 or less cycles. So that is our moonshot. We're at 68%, so we still have a little ways to go on that. Next slide. Some of our future improvements that we have planned are ensuring that plans are routed in 3 to 5 days. We don't want to have plans sitting in a bucket and sitting there for a long amount of time without actually being processed to the next step. So we want to ensure that we can get those plans processed in and out within 3 to 5 days. The automation of the resubmitted plans, the automation of approved plans and project docs. We're currently going through some upgrades to our project doc system. We hope to have those in by the end of this calendar year. We implemented a new customer relationship management system where individuals, if you cannot find the answer to your particular question through our live chat or through the website, we have a customer relationship management team that will be able to assist you with finding those answers to those questions. We're also including Microsoft bookings and online service appointments. This is something new to the Permitting Center. We hope to go live, or we went live with this on the 21st, and coming soon, probably before the end of July, we would have Microsoft bookings for the Building Code Enforcement Group as well. Next slide. So here's just a snapshot of the amount of plans that we had in our system at any particular day. So last June 17th, you can see we had 3,400 plans in the system, and you can see what the SLAs were for the number of days. Well, if you look at June 17th of 2022, that number is up to 4,000 plans. And we typically see a spike in the amount of plans submitted during the summer months. So before the end of August, it's not unlikely for us to have 5,000 plans in the system. And still with the 81 vacancies, you unfortunately will see our numbers continue to rise on the amount of turnaround time. which is another reason why we are utilizing staff augmentation contracts to help with the backlog. Next slide. So if you were to go to our website, you can look on the dashboard and you can hover your mouse over the pinwheel and you'll see what the actual number of days are for that particular day. So, if you were to hover over structural today, you will see that the structural numbers are down to 15 days. If you were to hover over our plumbing side, you'll see that the plumbing for this particular day are down to 12 days. So this is generated at 3 a.m. every morning. So if we get plans on Monday, by Tuesday morning, based on the number of plans and the oldest plan in the system, the dashboard updates and says that you have X amount of plans, and this is the oldest plan in the system. So this is how long you should expect for a plumbing review or structural or electrical review based on that plan that was submitted the day before. Next slide. Okay, we've tried to simplify the application process. And so basically, an applicant registers for I-permits and logs in. Then the applicant completes the online building permit application and uploads the unsworn declaration. If the address is new or doesn't require verification, then it would go to the next step. If it's a yes, then as you can see to the side, address assignment or verification required, then the applicant submits an address verification request. Once that's done, the request is approved and the applicant will be notified via email. Then we're going to go back over to, after they've got the verification approved, is the proposed construction related to a Houston airport system or metro development contract. Depending on your answer, you'd go to the next bullet, which is once approved, finalize the application and a project number will be assigned. Applicant receives an invitation from Project Docs to upload the plans. Next slide. So after the applicant uploads and submits plans via the Project Docs system, permit technician ensures the prerequisites are met and determines routing of the plans. Does the project meet the prerequisites? If it's a no, then the plans are returned to the applicant and then they resubmit the plans when all the prerequisites have been fulfilled. If it does meet all the prerequisites, then the plans are reviewed by all pertinent departments and BCE groups. And that's all of the departments listed there, your hazmat, your fire, taps and meters, planning, so forth. Once everything has been approved, then if all the plans are approved by all departments, then we go to the next slide. A permit tech verifies approval by all departments and processes the plans out of the system, approved for permit issuance. Once the project is approved, a sales order will be sent via email to the applicant for the permits that can be purchased. Applicant pays building permit and any fees or permit associated with it via iPermits and downloads approved plans and documents from Project Docs. Once payment is made, the permit will be emailed to the customer. Your licensed contractor obtains the trade permits if applicable, and that's for your electrical and plumbing for the most part. Inspections are scheduled when required. Structural inspections can be scheduled by anyone. Your trade inspections must be scheduled by the registered licensed contractor who purchased the trade permit. Next slide. So some of our online resources, if for whatever reason you have questions that you can't readily find on our website or through the live chat, you could always visit one of these additional resources for either plan review, building code enforcement fee schedule, your inspector schedule and status check, inspections notification system, your sole permit search, your forms, checklists, guides, and example drawings, or even your open records request. Here are all the links to those additional online resources that will help you solve any outstanding questions. Next slide. So hopefully this sheds some light on some of the questions, comments, and concerns surrounding the Houston Permitting Center. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.